So do we have any travelers in the room tonight? That's what I was expecting. And how many of you have been to India? A few. So for those who haven't, the best way that I can describe it is this. I was there in 2010 on a contract working for the Delhi Commonwealth Games. I was working as a writer, and on my first day, I arrived at the main press center. And two security men ran out of the building and they were screaming, "The monkeys are loose, the monkeys are loose." And what had happened is the security guards had security monkeys, as you do, who were kind of meant to keep us all safe, but the monkeys had actually gotten loose and they were chasing the journalists and eating paper and causing chaos. And to me, that was very true of the rest of my time in India. It is extremely chaotic. Nothing seems to make sense. Everything is all over the place. But there's this really rich kind of depth to it that just gets in you and it does not go away. And it's a very, very special place for that reason. And the conversation stemmed from my time in India. It was not during my work there, but after when I went on holiday. I went to Goa, which is a kind of a more beachy resort town, and I went there to unwind after my work. And I met a young lady. She was 17 years old. Her name was Kavita. She came from a very poor family in India, like many of the other kind of people of her age in that area, and she would spend half of the year working in the farms, cultivating a farm, and half a year running a small kiosk with her family. And every day, every morning, I would go walk along the beach, and she and several other vendors would try to sell me things. But there was something about her, I really liked her. She was very aggressive, but very successful in selling me things. And through our conversations, I learned a lot about her and her life. And in a year, she had an arranged marriage, so she was kind of getting ready for that. And her father was sick, so she was one of the sole caregivers for her family. And just at 17 years old, I was just absolutely blown away by kind of her life and her experience and her wisdom. And that didn't go away. I grew to appreciate her more on my last day. I was kind of tired. I was ready to go home. I didn't want to buy anymore, but she was persistent. She knew I was a good customer, and she was determined to do whatever she needed to do to make the final sale. So when I said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to buy anything. I have everything I need from you," she says, "Come to my house for a cup of chai. I live 10 minutes away. You can see my community, and I'll show you some of the other products that I have in my house." And I'm not going to say no to chai. So I walked with her, and I'm going to read a little bit. She had such an impact on me that I wrote a short story about it when I got back home, which was published. So I'm going to read a very short excerpt of being in Kavita's home with her and her making her final and very successful sale. Kavita leads me to the second room, which is only slightly less packed and smells of kerosene. One wall is covered with stacks of bags, while the other displays representation of Hindu gods. "There's only really one God," she says, with the maturity beyond her years. "My God, your God, they're all the same. One God with 100 names." When I ask where she and her family sleep, she points to the spot I'm standing. The tiny clearing of hard dirt is where all four of them sleep side by side. Kavita grabs several bags and dumps them onto the floor. Sitting down cross-legged, she opens them, revealing necklaces, bracelets, and other trinkets. Several of the pieces are identical to ones that I have seen time and time again at the different kiosks in India, but she insists hers are unique. Her grandmother made them all for me. She lays them out and carefully picks one up, a chunky bronze chain with a diamond blue-shaped bead. "You want?" she says in a tone that's more like a statement than a question. I rummage through the pile of jewelry and pick out a long brass chain with emerald beads. "Good choice," she approves, "but better with earrings." Laughing, I hold up the necklace and only the necklace and make my first offer. 150 rupees. She lets out a little squeak. I am her first and favorite customer of the day, so I will get a lucky price, but mine is much too low. So we bargain for a few minutes before finally agreeing on 300 rupees. "You are good business, Canada," she says, shaking my hand with a firm grip. I help her pack away her jewelry, and as we walk out, she looks at me and tilts her head. "Come," she says, leading the way back to the beach. "Maybe you have time for more shopping. You need sari?" So in her persistence, she was again successful in selling, but I walked away not just with a story, but with 3 lessons that I refer to often when I think about her and my time there. Number 1 is don't be afraid to change course, and creatively if you have to. For her, making the sale is her way of life. Not only does she depend on it, but her family does. And when I wasn't in the business for buying something for her from her kiosk, she completely changed. She invited me to her home. And that was, I don't know, maybe she does it to other customers. I'm going to assume that I was the only one, but it was smart. Who's going to say no to that? And when you're there, of course, you're going to purchase. So she was absolutely creative. She read me. She knew I was interested in her and her culture. And she invited me over for chai, which, by the way, I actually never got, but it was still a great experience. Number 2 is keep the traveler's mentality. Had I been at home and somebody offered me something, to eat or drink, chances are I might have said no, because we get so busy in our day-to-day lives that we're just kind of on autopilot and we go through things without thinking. I was only in Goa for 3 days, but I learned more about her than I know about my neighbor who I've lived next to for 2 years. So if you keep, whether it's your own community or your own country or your own world, really, when you can, keep the travel mentality and stay open. And the final one, and I know we've heard a lot about wine and vodka and martinis tonight, but I'm going to advocate for my favorite drink, is never turn away an invitation for tea. I did my I have my master's in international communication, and I spent 2 months in China studying the tea culture there. And I learned so much about the Chinese culture through that. And if you think of chai or Persian tea houses or Japanese tea ceremony, you learn so much about cultures and yourself. So never say no to tea. And I'm just going to conclude by, I'm going to live that. There's some fabulous tea houses in Vancouver. One of the most recently opened ones is in Hastings Village, and it's 4 First Nations women who've opened it. So I would like to invite any of you who are interested to join me there in the coming weeks. Just send me a tweet and I will set up a time to meet for some tea. Thank you.